Start. Based on the fact that I can't seem to get it started on time, we're going to try to today.
So we have Arlene Zortman.
Here.
Carrie Snow. Here. Glenn Pepper. Here. Jenna Reedy. Here. Melissa Berry. Here. And then staff we have Lauren Selle. Here. Henry Daniels. Here. And Sarah Arnold. Here.
Thank you. Okay. Everybody had a chance to look at the minutes from October 8th, and if so, I need a motion to approve. Glenn, second. Jenna. All in favor, say aye. Okay. Opposed? The minutes are approved. Okay. Any public invited to be heard? Scare up some people here these days. It's always fun to listen to what they have to say. Organizational updates.
Just bear with me, sorry, I'm not mentally prepared. I had some family stuff happen over the weekend with this show.
Well, we were supposed to have a long weekend. Did you straighten it out? Is that a longer day?
I wish. So, as you guys know, we've had a lot of positions open recently. We've had some shift in staff. Since I came on board, we've promoted people. We have a couple people resign. We have one person terminated. We're currently seeking some maintenance staff. We hired one who started today. But just overall, I would say that we're still kind of in that fluctuation period, trying to nail down staffing. It's kind of creating a bit of a pressure squeeze on us. We've got some people out on leave, parental caregiver leave. We have people on medical leave. So it's been a difficult few months, and I'm really feeling the stress covering for Jasmine, Patrick, Lisa, me, and Mom. So thank you for your grace and your patience today, because I am going to do the best I can.
Was it the regional department manager or the assistant that you have on board?
So we made an offer to someone for the regional.
Okay.
They accepted, and yesterday they rescinded.
Oh.
So we are back to. So we have some discussions to have internally about what we're going to do now.
How are you doing on maintenance? Because
we're down to 2 right now. We have one on vacation. Patrick's still on leave until December 3rd. We had to let one person go. We hired one today. We're hiring one more. We have more interviews happening today or tomorrow. So we will be fully staffed once we hire one more and everybody's back. By December 3rd, we'll have the full team. And we're already prioritizing unit turns and the contract that we're going to do with the ARPA money for unit turns and custodial cleaning. So I'm actually okay with the maintenance side. It's really just the regional that we need to fill that.
So Molly just got temporary?
Molly is out until mid-December.
Okay.
So, we're all people, life happens. We keep our heads up and keep moving forward. So we'll make it work. We'll do the best we can.
What's the pipeline like for all the positions?
I mean, we really had the regional filled technically until yesterday. So we have the regional and one maintenance vacant, and then one accounting potential that we're hired for.
I mean, would you post these positions, do you get a lot of interest, or are we struggling trying to find?
We had a lot of interest for the regional. We had like 100 applicants.
that is second or third choice, or was it just?
Well, technically yes, but we had already made the offer and they accepted, so you kind of move on from there, and you don't expect someone to withdraw. So we have some internal discussions to have about what we want to do. And then for maintenance, we had not a huge interest. But we've had quite a few applications. We've had some good candidates that we're kind of trying to compare. It's always a question of, do you hire for the cultural fit, the skills, the combo? Do you want to hold out for that unicorn person who's got both? So that's one of the hard parts. We did hire one who just kind of checked all the boxes, had a lot of construction experience and a lot of handyman, just personal handyman experience. So that's the person who started today. Pretty confident that he'll do great. And then just looking for another person. We had one interview with a gentleman who was super green, didn't know anything about maintenance, but was had such a good spirit and character. But the team was like, any other time if we were fully staffed, we'd say let's hire for the training, but not in this case. We're so shorthanded, we really need a person who can just hit the ground running. So that's kind of what's, for me, a huge organizational challenge that we're having right now. Couple that with the holidays, cuts in on our time to actually get work done. But that's kind of, I would say, what's really weighing on me for LHA.
So do you have a maintenance person at Suites?
Technically we do. It's been, our team of 3 has been amazing at communication, teamwork, organizing their workload, and really just being flexible to pitch in if needed.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah. And now we have a team as well. So new build doesn't mean no work. It's actually a different level of work where you have to decide, is this an actual maintenance issue or is this a warranty issue?
Yeah.
And then you have to round up the warranty process. So we're doing that on 2 fronts with Zinnia and Village on Main. So Village on Main doesn't have a dedicated maintenance person, and New Suites does not have a dedicated maintenance person. And Bridal, because they're lumped in with Village on Main. So that's a hurdle. We'll be okay. That's all I have for organizational stuff that I can think of as staffing challenges. Other organization? You already did budget.
Well, that'll be in my
Later.
financial.
So we can move to development and project.
Okay.
So Ascent is under construction. We have a groundbreaking that is scheduled for It is scheduled for the 21st. It'll be at the Hearthstone. We kind of have it scheduled there just for weather permitting issues. So that's at 10:30 a.m. on the 21st.
So just so you know, Lauren, I'm not going to be able to make that one.
Okay.
Do you know what day of the week that is off
It's Thursday. It's a Thursday. And then for Village on Main, December 3rd at 2:30 p.m.
What days are
That's Tuesday. That's also the day that Patrick comes back. And then for Zinnia, we're having a grand opening potentially 12/16, Monday the 16th of December at 11 a.m. It's kind of a hold that we have on the calendars. Catherine with Elements confirming some of the state here and all that.
So are we considering, and I think I asked this last time and I thought the answer was no, but I probably didn't hear it. Does Zinnia actually belong to the housing authority now? No.
No, we don't own it.
We don't own it outright. We are a sliver partner with a special limited partnership, so it would not have happened without our participation in that respect. And then we are the property manager, so I think it would be completely appropriate if you wanted to come to the grand opening, because if not for the partnership, it wouldn't have happened. But
That was just
technically,
a
it's not in our portfolio,
Yeah, for,
in the ownership
I
side.
don't know who all knows this. That project actually started before the city took over the housing authority, so that was going all the way back to Fall River, when they didn't have enough cash to close the deal on Fall River, so the city, through the inclusionary, or through the Affordable Housing Fund, purchased the property surrounding the suites for $750,000. So then we, as the city, started the conversation with Element, because we weren't in the role of the housing authority, so that's still one of the hangovers from pre-bringing it in. Which, for permanent supportive housing, honestly, that's probably not a bad model, not to be in an ownership role in that, just because of the other things that come in and facilitate the development of it, but then have the management piece to draw money out of it. You know, because at the end of the day, unlike on the suites, when we're stuck with, oh, here's a $100,000 meth expense. That's not on us. And so we'll see if we have another project, but not a bad model.
Are they fully leased out?
Yep.
They leased faster than we were building.
Wow.
So, huge kudos to John and our staff for getting all that application paperwork done single-handedly, also while trying to manage the suites.
Yeah, that's a lot.
How's it going, Michelle?
I mean, every property has its bumps opening, and then when you add in the permanent supportive housing aspect, it can be difficult, but honestly, it hasn't been that bad as far as tenants go.
I have some updates for you when it's my turn.
Yeah, I mean, we're going through the rough patches as people moving in and adjusting to being housed and not understanding apartment and community living, understanding having rules. Suddenly that can be difficult, and so we're doing our best to work with folks to help with that transition. At the end of the day, it's we make the recommendation as a property manager to the owner and then the boss. So I do prefer this structure, as you were saying. So we're not necessarily always the decision maker for some of the harder calls. So, I would say the biggest issue we've had was the security. The security that the owner selected was not great, is not great. So we've been struggling with that
After we told them that,
to begin with.
at least a couple dozen times.
You know, sometimes
Have they changed it?
not right now.
I thought they were going to.
Oh, yeah. No.
No, I mean, we're having conversations about, you know, what the options are. Ultimately, it's their decision as the owner. We just make recommendations. So,
Strong recommendations, huh?
It's not the same company that this is.
That's the one we were recommending to use the one, because they're great.
and the cohesiveness of two properties
Yeah.
on one campus would be good. So we made our recommendations and our arguments, and they ultimately will make the decision of what they want to do. So.
No staffing issues. How was that for snow?
We have a plan. Our snow removal plan last year was one where we had an on-call person in addition to the regular on-call. And from the feedback I got from the staff, that could be very overwhelming for one person to then go around and do snow removal at 10 properties. It was 9 out of 10. So this year we've adjusted so that every maintenance person is responsible for their own property. We make the call the day before, whether or not you're on call for snow removal, and it's mostly an expectation that you're going to show up. We did have a kind of trial run, a dry run, pun intended, this weekend. We were ready to come in on Saturday and shovel up to 5 inches of heavy wet snow, but thankfully nothing happened. We didn't really get any. Got a little slush here and there, and that was it. But even with just 2 people scheduled, the assistant community managers and property managers were kind of ready to pitch in where needed, and I was even planning to come to Fall River Spring Creek because C and John were both on vacation, so it worked out, but I think we'll have a better result because then you have, you know, the combination of someone running around with the snow plow on the truck, plowing the parking lots. You'll have the staff. We bought a new snow blower. I think
Not yet.
we're buying a new snow blower. We've got the Coleman moved to a different property. We're supposed to be getting another, like a 4-wheeler with a plow on it.
That's what I don't know what the snow blower is, but,
I think they bought a snow blower for Village on Main. Like just your handheld snow.
well, yeah, most of the properties have snow.
Yeah. So we have the snow blowers, we've got the shovels. Some places it's better to put the shovel, depends on the snow as well. So we'll have everybody everyone working for a shorter amount of time rather than 1 or 2 people working for 12 hours. Because that can be a lot. And then we did set aside money in 2025 for snow removal contracted if necessary. We'll have to see.
And so a few things, hopefully within a couple of months we'll have the second truck. And then there's also the Kubota, for lack of a better word, it's probably Toro, that'll hopefully be coming.
Something more maneuverable, short blade.
And then we've also talked to Matt McKenzie in our operations division, who's willing to come in and bring some of our operational crews to help plow if we have staffing issues. So I want to go through that set before we trigger a contractor, because you know those guys are out anyway. It's just diverting them real quick to move through a property, and they're really fast because they do a lot of that. So.
And do we pay them?
Hmm?
Do we pay them?
No,
Maybe be under the IGA.
it's part of that general IGA.
Yeah, and what was budgeted
We
wasn't
pay 'em.
necessarily a contract. It was more like what the city has in place for temporary snow removal staff that you can bring in.
Yeah.
So more like a temporary position as opposed to a big contract for the snow removal.
Yes.
And it may be, if there's enough of that, we may have to look at it and true up, but if it's one storm, that's the whole point of the IGA with the city, is to just take advantage of the economy of scale and not
Yeah.
have every single thing changing because, you know, obviously what the LHA is compensating for Molly and I is not probably covering all of our time. And so, you know, we just kind of watch it to make sure it's reasonably balanced.
So on the snow removal, I'm assuming it would be one of the big trucks, one of the big city trucks.
No, it would be a 3/4 ton.
And they would just make one sweep through the.
Oh, they would get it done if they need to do. But, yeah, they would clear the pathway and things like that. Kind of like we do our parking lots. So they would take the same approach. And at some point, it may make more sense for us to, as we start looking through this, to get some of those drivers. They may, you know, we need to just see how it goes. But it may make sense that if they need to hire snowplow drivers, but they don't have quite enough work, that maybe we could figure it out that way as well.
So we have the Village on Main wrapping up the project construction close. There's still some loose ends we're tying up, things purchasing for the property that weren't covered under the construction contract. Probably doing a lot of cleaning and organizing before the grand opening. And then we have the camera system up and running there, but we're not able to access yet. So snafu.
We're just waiting for the licensing through ATS to come through. So I viewed them, they're working on site the weekend.
access.
We can't access them.
So good learning for the next one that comes online as we
We should
start.
have all the licenses by the time we.
Yeah.
get that.
Making sure that we're ready to go for the next set. The village, so with the village wrapped up, we're also in the stabilization phase. This is really crucial time for like new construction where you're trying to keep costs down and see that stabilized financial 3 months before you convert to your perm loan. You pay off your high interest construction loan. In this case, because it's pretty much leased up, stabilization isn't as much of a scary time for a rehab project, but still making sure that we hit those targets so that we can convert to our perm loan, which just means better operations for us, less money being spent on interest. So that's kind of top of mind for that project. Zinnia, since we don't own it, I'm not too worried about that phase except for us managing on the property management side of the budget so that the owner can hit those targets. For Ascent, October, the construction's underway. We did have an issue last week where they ran into a water line abandonment that they had to run into all night long doing construction, and we didn't get notice, and so that kind of created some issues. So we've since addressed that with both the owner, or our co-GP, Penrose, the contractor in the city, and let the contractor know if that happens again, you need to be in contact with our property manager so that she knows what's happening. We can let people know, because she was being woken up all hours of the night herself, and the residents were knocking on her door to ask, why is there construction happening next door to them? So fun stuff that we get to deal with. But that project's underway. We have weekly meetings with the owner, architect, and contractor, lovingly known as OAC meetings if you don't know. So those will be going on for a long time. But it's going through well. We had a lot of work done in a rush to spend some CD money at the properties, some asphalt work at 1228 Main, at Briarwood, Fall River, Spring Creek, and Sweets to restraight the asphalt and come into compliance with our VC, Voluntary Compliance Agreement, VCA, with HUD. So we spent that money in a timely way, got that done. We also had some concrete work done at the Sweets. If you've driven to the Sweets prior to a couple weeks ago, you might have noticed the big hole missing in concrete at the entranceway. So we got that repaired. So that's been fixed. We fixed one of the sidewalk ramps that didn't meet the ADA slope requirements, and fixed a couple other spots just to improve ADA accessibility to the property.
So I just want to kind of throw this out about Sweets, and it's kind of it's just a strange thing. Nelson Road that goes from Hover to Sunset. Your little gal in the wheelchair. There's no sidewalk there on a large majority of that. In fact, I think probably on most of that. And she's out on the road, granted in the bicycle part of it, which scares me to death, that she's going to get hit. I thought there was a way she could get from the property over to Village at Peaks without possibly going down Sunset. Not Sunset, but yeah.
I think that's the
trail. That's the trail project that they have that they're going to build, but it's not currently built. But yeah, that's the plan, is for that trail to be built so they can do that.
I feel like she might have been used to be able to get through where the connection was to the church, but because of Zinnia now, that connection is severed. And so there is a way to get to the backside of the Village Peaks, but
Village at Peaks or something.
Yeah, it's like gravel and grass, and it's like an emergency access if needed, but it's not paved so that people can drive there.
Yeah.
But I don't think that there is a paved way yet.
Trying to look.
I just saw her out there on the road and I thought, this is a little scary.
Yeah.
Well, there is There's sidewalk actually if you come out and you go by the Subaru dealership and then you turn down Industrial Circle.
Yeah, she can cut
She-
through there.
She can get through there without getting on the road to get to that
She was
location.
actually just Nelson. No, yeah, Nelson.
Yeah. So if you're trying to get to Village, you can do that, but you could also do that and then you go around the backside. And then from there, you could actually cross Underhover on the trail on the west side of Village of the Peaks. So there's a way to get there.
Just might not be the shortest, fastest.
So, and I'm thinking, she's pretty tough. She's gonna go the way she wants regardless, so, yeah, but it just was a little scary to me.
I did put an email out to Dakota. I don't know if we ever discussed this, but there were issues with the irrigation lines during construction that resulted in some of the grass behind the seeds dying. I'm not heartbroken over a bunch of sod dying personally that we would then water because we're going to be doing the trail project. I'd like to xeriscape it anyway. So I've asked them instead of resodding that for us in the spring because it was their fault, would they mulch the sweets and move the rocks and help us make the sweets look a little bit more presentable? So we can hear back from them on that. I think that would just, it makes more sense and it's probably cheaper for them. And they've had to fix a lot of things that did not go well. Their problem. So, yeah. Hoping to make the sweets look a little bit more pretty.
So Aspen Meadows is how it's going with Florida.
Aspen Meadows neighborhood, we have the B2 vacancy, which was the meth rebuild. There's a contractor working in that unit. I'd say they're probably 75 to 80% done. We then have to go and do a few more things that wasn't covered in their scope. And then we have another pretty heavy unit turn on C5, which was the eviction for a person who graduated from the HCA program. And they lived there a really long time, so it needs a lot of work. It's not that they trashed the place, they were there for like 13 years. Several kids grew up in the house, and so it needs a lot of work. So those are our two at Aspen Meadows neighborhood. As far as Aspen Meadows Senior with the flooring, we finally got the proposal from the flooring company, the contractor and the architect. We're reviewing that, and we're scheduling an appointment with an attorney to review all of our options, make sure we know what all of our choices are before we move forward. But that proposal initially involved an in-kind donation of staff time to move residents' belongings from one side of the apartment to the other. We've since said that's just not possible. We don't have the capacity to do that. So we'll have to figure, if we go with that proposal, we'll have to figure out if there's a cost to hire a new company and what that looks like. So hopefully almost there. We don't really have any units that I can think of where it's causing a problem. So much that we have to do something right away. We do have one vacant unit that needs new floor that we're kind of coming in line about. Do we wait to replace the flooring? Do we do it now? But just in the interest of getting the unit rented, I think we're going to move forward with just replacing it. That wasn't due to the flooring issues, it was due to the tenant. So working on that. I actually went through in our maintenance meeting this morning our list of vacancies and unit terms that we need to tackle, and we're pretty confident. There's quite a few that we listed as a one priority. It's quick and easy. We can get it done this week or early next week. Sort of help us prioritize for when we do hire the unit term company to give them a list to get to work and what needs to be done. That's it on development and project updates.
That's it.
I do have something for number 6. I wanted to get your feedback and opinions on moving from a monthly coffee conversations to either every other month or quarterly schedule, with the exception of the sweets and things, because I think they do benefit from a monthly check-in. We run out of, sometimes we run out of topics. Sometimes it feels like it's just the same handful of tenants coming and voicing the same concerns. A month is sometimes not enough for our staff to make a dent in some of the requests or things that come up. And it can feel a little bit like a defeat every time you go and say, well, we don't have an answer for that yet. And it's like months, because it takes a few months to get some things done. And our staff would just appreciate, less
Their time.
Yeah.
So I remember when we first started this, and it really was because the city had just taken over and there was a lot of information that needed to be talked about month after month after month. I've attended enough of those meetings, and you're right, it's the same people, the same problems. And the attendance has really gone downward. I mean, I personally think once a quarter we do it, but if they would be more comfortable with every other month, but I don't know that that's, they're gonna forget, is it this month, is it next month, if it was once a quarter? Yeah, it seems like to me it would be a little bit more, but that's my opinion.
I think the managers do a really good job of posting the meetings around the building, whether it's in the elevator or on their main board.
That's quarterly. I think it's not much of a lift to put notice out a week or two before to remind people, plus having it on the TV that's scrolling. We can also post the dates on our website, which we don't utilize that right now for that purpose. And then have a deadline if they have questions that they can submit.
When are you thinking, if you decide to make this change, when are you thinking to start?
January.
Okay, so it would be a lot of getting the information out ahead of time so that there are not a lot of complaints.
Oh, we'll get complaints.
Oh, yeah.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
Some people will like it, some people won't. That's okay.
I was at Aspen Meadows last month, less than 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some properties, people are way more active and engaged, and then at others, unless there's something large to talk about. And it's costly too. I mean, when we're buying all this food every month, it adds up, and that cuts into other funds that could otherwise be used for residents.
Yeah, and I think you have the one in the first quarter in January, which kind of is on schedule. And that's where you tell everybody, look, these have changed a lot, so we're going to move to a quarterly basis. I think to your point, they're not lasting a long time. I do think like the suites is one where that's different, but here's the big change that I'm seeing is that the property managers we have in place now, they have really good relationships with their tenants. And so that's actually, I think, the reason why these aren't as well attended and the problems aren't there. And I mean, Arlene, you were there when we first started. It was chaotic, to say the least, in terms of, but it was all of these things that we were catching up on, and the lack of engagement with the previous housing authority. And I think now there's so much engagement that's occurring between the property managers, and they can contact Laura, and they can contact Sarah, and they can contact me, and they do. But I just think that it's really decreased the need for it now. We'll obviously have the ability to have special ones if something happens that requires us to come in and engage with the residents, and we do that now anyway. If something were to happen, we would schedule those meetings and move in pretty quick. How
would we get out certain projects? Like, Sarah, they're always interested in what's going on with the county. Rather than wait a quarter? Is there some mechanism to
So
just give them some information?
we have a newsletter that goes to our tenants if they sign up for it. And we have switched that to every other month because there was a lull in capacity in content when I started. And I think if we're lowering the frequency of coffee conversations, we're gonna increase the content for a monthly newsletter. And the newsletter is done by Scott Yoho with the communications team. And so having, what I kind of envision is having more of a cohesion with the maintenance supervisor, the regional, and him to feed him the content for what needs to be getting out to residents, and then really encourage residents to sign up for those newsletters. And then the property manager can also get the newsletter, post a newsletter at the property for people to get the info.
Yeah, got the TV, got the constant mechanism.
That would be helpful. I don't think that there is now a link to the newsletters on the LHAAB site. That might be helpful. I mean, honestly, I've been trying to track down coffee room conversations, and Eric has been super helpful, but yeah, just some issues by email, so I spent a long time kind of going through the site, and I think that'd be really helpful.
The site needs a lot to be designed.
I'm wondering if we need to include Village on Main on a monthly basis, at least for a year, because of their remodel, or do you think that every quarter is apt?
That would be our most active community right now. And I can tell you from personal experience, it is a lot to manage the deluge of questions and emails on a monthly basis, when the majority of it will be answerable by a regional and a community manager, absent a rehab project. So I think the project's over. Now is the time to set and manage expectations going forward, because if we continue this another year, it becomes the standard for the property, and it is exhausting. I got 3 emails this week asking questions, and then we answer questions, and then we get some more questions. So I would like to kind of step back and reassess, what does this open communication really look like, because it's not realistic. It's not realistic, and it's not manageable like this going forward. It is a lot. And now that the rehab project is over, I think we can ease our way back into it.
And they've kind of settled down over there too. Yeah, I think. Yeah. From what I hear anyway.
This month, we're going to be talking about budget and rent increases, so I think that it'll be a more attendance. We did send out rent increase letters to all properties, just notifying people of the 2025 potential increases. So I do expect more people to come to this month's coffee conversations.
And Harold, you're going to be at those or no? Or just Warren?
Some of them.
Yeah, I think they typically try to have me at that one. Heart Southern Lodge, probably not, because they don't pay it.
Right.
And so we tend to go where that's there. Part of the challenge is, I think you've done a few of these on budget where I've had to get pretty direct, and you want all of these things, but you're upset because we're raising the rent. We can't do this without doing this. And so last year I was pretty pointed at times, depending on the group and their questions. And so probably it is, we need to make sure I can get at some of these.
Well, I'm fine if you guys want to go to quarter starting in January 2025.
I agree. It's reasonable.
So we'll just make sure the board's on board next week, and we'll start working on that stuff.
You can always remind them that they can come to the public speaking.
Yeah.
They can come. They could even, I don't know if people do they ever submit questions ahead of time if they don't want to physically come?
No, I mean, and they can come and talk to, and it's interesting. Here's the thing that has been interesting to me. Those that have had like, because there's a question of operational versus policy, right? And most of their questions, in some ways, they're delving in the operational world. And there's a lot of them that know, oh, I'll start with the manager. If there's not anything that's happening, then they go to Lauren, and rarely do they ever come to me. And there's a couple of people that will just blast all of us. But it's like, oh, the Wi-Fi's not, or the washing machines aren't working, or oh, the Wi-Fi's not working, and those are okay. That's just their personality. Since Lauren's been on board, I've had very few of those that have escalated all the way to me. And so I say all of that because it's interesting what's driving the questions, and sometimes I think if this is the broader challenge that we're facing today in this, just generally in the city and everything that we're doing, is that if it's not what I want, then it turns into this thing, but we're not looking at what you want, we're looking at what everybody needs. And that's just something that's become more pervasive just in everything that we do. It becomes what I want, not taking this broader community view or residential view. And so sometimes you have to navigate that, and I think that's part of why we want to go to court. Because
Well, you see that in City Council.
I see it every day.
I'm sure you do. I only see it in City Council.
Yeah, I mean, but you see it at council, you see it in this, we see it every day. It's like, I want you to do this. And it's, well, we're kind of looking at a broader community and looking at broader issues, and it turns into a thing. And it's interesting, we're even seeing it pop in HOAs now too, where it's just turned into a thing.
Anything else, Phil? Okay, all right. Resident quality of life. I'm sure what goes underneath there. Nothing. We usually have nothing.
We had we had that on the agenda when we were starting things like the bus work, and
Jean really spoke to a lot of it too.
and we thought we had it when we were trying to get money to do things. So. We had it when we were, trying to get resident fees and things like that, and that sort of just become its own thing, and what they're doing in the properties. But I think that circles back then to the managers that we have in place, and that we're not necessarily seeing the same amount of requests we're having for those that have been on the board, it's like, the patio furniture asked and AMSA and can't move it, too heavy, those things. We're not hearing even coming to us before the board, we're not hearing a lot of that because I think of the engagement with the managers as they're moving through and talking to them through these projects. And, that was lesson learned from AMSA because we inherited that one, and they just said, here's what we're gonna buy. And we all just went into it and said, we gotta get it done. Well, for those that were here, if you remember, there was no discussion with them about artwork or these other issues. And so I think the managers have really just folded that into their daily operations. And so we're not seeing it as much.
Well, your managers seem to be comparatively more personal.
Yeah.
And that makes a lot of difference.
And I think they're interested in it too. We actually, if we hear anything, we hear it from them. We wish we'd have more money for these types of things. And we're sitting there going, well, here's what you have. And properties like Hearthstone and Lodge, they're the ones that suffer the most because of that 202 program and the fact that their budget's really dictated by HUD. And so we're really seeing on the other properties, they're pretty good about working through it. Spring Creek, we've had some issues on resident activities because of internal battles. That was at Spring Creek. Because of internal battles. This group wants to do this.
They're pretty cool.
Yeah, this group wants to do this and this group wants to do something for everyone. Again, it's all about, well, this is what I want to do, and we instituted a vote and
Yeah, we don't have that anymore.
but
It's nuts.
so
But the managers that are going to do a good job now, how are they getting up-to-date information on things like Sarah's?
they talk daily. They talk, yeah.
Yeah, I call them often and try to go meet with them in person at least once a month or every other month if I can. So,
Or like when something happens and Sarah's seeing the report, she's communicating either the day of or the next day with the manager on the property where something happens. And then depending on what the nature of it is, she's communicating with Lauren, myself, Molly, Leo. I mean, it just, the nature of what she's seeing, but the communication's pretty tight.
Okay. Well, we can read that on there. LHA report, update on operations, occupancy report.
So it looks scarier than it is.
Okay, because I did have some questions.
We went over our vacants this morning, and it shows a lot at Fall River, Spring Creek, but
Yeah.
only 2 at each are ones that need like actual maintenance work. The rest are either they got notice and they moved out and it's a light clean, flip the unit and rent it, or it's light touch up and rent. So that's not as bad as it looks.
So it's nothing really critical over there. It's
No.
also decent places, yeah.
So where the lag has been at Fall River, Spring Creek, we did a training with Yardi last month. No, it's September. It was end of September, because it's November now.
It goes
And one of the sessions that we did in that training was moving the wait list from the paper wait list to Yardi. We had initially, I wasn't here, but LHA had started to do that project a long time ago. The person who kind of had all the knowledge about doing that left, so we just stuck with the paper and an Excel spreadsheet. Not the best way to do it, so we have moved that responsibility back down to the property managers to manage their own wait lists, and they are working on getting it into Yardi. It's not super intuitive, but so far Fall River, Spring Creek are the first ones that got it done. And that's really a testament to Nikki, our assistant, and John working so quickly and working together. And so the lag in their vacancies is because they couldn't, until they got the wait list into Yardi, they couldn't start calling people. They didn't want to start calling people with the old process. So they should be filling up these units rapidly.
So then Yardi will update this regularly?
Yes,
On the waiting list?
so they'll apply, we'll put it into Yardi for now ourselves, it's data entry. And then we pull from that list, and all their information that we put into it then just transfers over. So you're gonna do data entry, either putting it in the wait list or putting it in when they apply. Either way, we're just doing it one time. When we get Rent Cafe live, we can have people applying for the wait list online, which then removes the data entry piece altogether. Rent Cafe is a module within Yardi where they can apply online, they can do work orders online, they can pay online for rent.
If I understood last meeting, we bought this Cadillac.
Yes,
So we've already got this stuff, it's just a matter of being able to turn it on.
Yeah.
and Kendra's been working diligently with our Yardi representative to get
There's no
all that
additional
done.
cost that we bring these on cost.
No, I think we pay for it all.
It's an ongoing cost. I mean, it's a subscription, so it's like a per unit subscription type of cost that we pay for the Rent Cafe. It's 2 different, what we didn't know is that it's 2 different implementations. So you have Rent Cafe, that's the PHA side, which is the voucher side, which is the whole beast and animal itself. And then the affordable housing side is its own. And it'll eventually, so I had took on the responsibility of updating our websites. I stopped that because technically Red Cafe will become our websites. So they actually build the websites out, and it'll have, like, if you're an applicant or if you want to get to the portal, make payments and everything like that. So we try to keep the websites different based on the type of properties. So the same website for our light tech properties, the same website for our 202 properties, and then another type of website for our supported housing properties. So right now I've sent all the information off to them. We just have to get all the pictures, find out where the pictures are on our drive, so that I can send those in a separate email. But it sounds like the affordable housing side is not as big of a beast to get set up as the voucher side is.
And you already does the setup and all.
Yeah, we go through a whole implementation package, and we've already paid for the implementation piece. So it's setting up, we have weekly meetings on the voucher side, and it's going through, on the voucher side, you have to go through 4 or 5 different module setups. On the affordable, it doesn't sound like it's like that. It's getting the website set up and then having those links. So so anybody could actually go to the website, apply, and get the links. So, whereas the HCP side, it's you release when people can get on the wait list, so it's a lot different. But yeah, we're moving. It probably won't get, I'm gonna say, completed until first quarter of 2025, as much as they told us it would take to get through each module set up. And we do testing and they train us as we go, so.
For the rest of the properties, we have our 4 down units, it's kind of in the same ones ongoing. The Sweet Smith unit, which we did get our final testing completed, and that's left. The decon, where they ripped out everything that was contaminated. Aspen Meadows B2 is the one that we have the contractor working on. That was a complete meth gut and rebuild. Aspen C5s, that was the full unit need for the eviction. And then the 111 unit needed flooring due to odor. The odor's actually not that bad anymore, but if you go into certain corners within the unit, you can still smell the urine. So we can't have someone do it like that. So that's the one we're just going to go ahead and replace. It's just one of those things.
So on the neighborhood, where you've got 2 down, I understand that, you've got 3 rentable. Is there, because those are decent places up there, is it the training? Or is it just that people are not interested in it?
No, so 2 of the units are ready to rent. It's the wait list piece. That's what's the lag. Summer's working on how to transition the wait list. Oh, I forgot to tell you, we also recently hired another assistant community manager. We hired her months ago, but she had to wait to start due to an injury. So she started 2 weeks ago, and she is splitting time between Village on Green and Aspen Meadows. And so now both Kat and Summer have that additional help to get the wait list into Yardy. But yeah, those 3 units, that's mostly just due to the lag in calling people on the wait list. They should rent very quickly.
And then we still run into the same thing on suites, where you've got, isn't it MHP that's got the most?
Yep, and they have people lined up and ready to go that we're ready to work on. It's due to the lack of maintenance staff there that we weren't prioritizing those unit turns because we were just making do with 3 people. Now it was 4, now we're down to 3. One's on vacation this week. So currently we have 2 folks working on the maintenance team. 1 starting today, so. We have a plan for those units with the unit turn company that we're going to contract with. And one thing with the Fall River, we released the manager's unit since nobody's occupying that one. But similar to what we saw at AMSA, a 2-bedroom, 50% AMI is really hard rent. So we might need to make a decision on lowering the rent. We'll market it for a short time, but if we're not seeing movement, I'd like to get that unit rented, even if we have to just do a lower amount to get money in the door. We had a 2-bedroom, 50% in AMSA that was vacant for 9 months.
So you have that option to lower it and then could move it back up if the other need came up again?
There's sort of a guidepost on the AMI rent levels that we can kind of drop it to 45% AMI and see if that gets someone. Because there's a lot of times where people are just at the 2 times the rent amount, just don't make it. And if we can lower it a couple $100, it becomes something that they can do. Because we do not want to rent burden an applicant. Even though they might be telling you, I can pay it, we're like, yeah, but what are you not paying just so you can pay your rent? That's not the goal. So if we can lower the rent amount a bit, we get someone in who still can afford it, that's what we want to do. Usually that's fine, we don't need to jump through any special hoops. As long as we document that we marketed it, didn't have any success, and that's why we chose to lower it. We just need to make sure we keep that documentation in case the investor asks for it. We only have 2 units that remain vacant at Village on Main. The rest all have pending applications or move-in dates now through December. So we're almost fully leased there again. I'm including the vacancy loss, which makes me sad.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
Can you just explain that?
So
Dollars?
this is the lost rent because units sat vacant for so long. This is the money we didn't take in.
So $632,000.
And so you've included Zinnia on here, that's why we're saying.
I can't take it out now because it's part of the all prop, so just ignore that amount mentally. Just deduct it. But yeah, technically, it's part of our portfolio and you already so lumps it in. Is there a way we can create another one? And that's just because it's not fully like set up yet. We don't actually have any vacancies there.
So roughly $500,000.
That's the cost of not prioritizing unit terms and not having streamlined processes.
So eventually we're gonna get those turned around in.
We're gonna see this
20 days
number
or something?
a lot lower in 2025. That's my goal.
We haven't been able to ship what the target goal is.
97% vacancy.
We did, we put it high, so 97% is what, so 3% vacancy is what's budgeted for 2025. It was 4%, but we have like 4 properties that are way over their budget as far as vacancies in the third quarter.
So we're gonna try to get unit turns down to 5 days, 5 to 7 business days, instead of 30 to 60.
What would that be dollar-wise?
It depends on the unit.
Yeah, it depends
Just
on
that. I'm not looking for exact numbers on this. We're talking about 100,000, 300,000.
for a month or
5 days.
Well, this is basically 10 months. Also, so I'm just curious what a year would think. It's okay.
It's gonna be high.
The question's only for mine.
It's
So I have
so
an
different
idea
at
what
each
that is.
property. Because most of the properties, the way we do it is, the way the vacancies counted is based on the high type rent. So even though the suites, they have tenant-based vouchers or project-based vouchers, we don't do the vacancy on those high dollar amounts, so that's why it's like, it's really hard to lock down that number.
Okay. I just wanted to reference point for myself. That's okay. Got it.
Okay.
So if you're saying in 10 months, it's 600,000,
Per unit, it's about $1,239.
I mean, that should probably come down to
200.
250.
Yeah.
It's kind of what my brain, where the math is coming, but yeah. But that's also why we're putting in, how much, 180? 80,000,
70.
70,000 from ARPA interest into paying for the unit turns.
Custodial.
And yeah,
I'm sorry.
so the,
Unit turns, additional help to do some of the larger, additional help. It's one-time funding, potentially add more to it as ARPA interest funds become available. That's called swooping. Kind of like push that money into this nice little pot. And so it's not a dedicated source of funding, but it will help us get through this sort of difficult time period. And then what I'd like to know long-term is there a cost benefit to having a custodial team that we call for unit turns? Because the way that it's been explained to me by our staff is really they should be coming in and cleaning the unit first, because you can see a lot more of what needs to be done once it's been cleaned. The maintenance comes in and does their work, they clean up after themselves. The way it is now, they go in and do a bunch of work and then they have to do a full unit clean. And one, they're not cleaners. They're not thinking like a cleaning company would. And to their own admission, they don't do a great job. And we're paying them X dollars a month or X dollars an hour to clean when we would be paying a lot less for a cleaning company or a custodial staff person. So I'm hoping through this contract we get to see that data, and then we can make decisions whether we continue contracting out for that, or does that become an internal position? Is it cheaper?
I don't know if I've never noticed it before, but I just never noticed that information before.
This is the second time I put it on here.
That was really,
Yeah.
and that's a really eye-opening.
And I figured out how to do it myself this month. So I'm proud of myself.
We might want to change your dates.
Okay.
Just because October hasn't been fully
So it might be more.
processed yet.
Oh.
So
There's more data than that.
Yeah. Yes.
well, and part of it is, so what you do is when you restabilize and you catch them up, then you tighten up on the timelines based on what we're doing. So it's really kind of two things happening. We're bringing money in and we're going to give you help and we're going to catch you up, but we're going to tighten the requirements on in terms of what you have to get done. Because part of what we've said is it's been really hard for us to figure out what's really driving the issue, because it's easy to say, well, we have this, or we're taking something off your plate. Now we're going to be able to really zone in on what the issue is, and so we will tighten and change expectations.
No, this is great.
It's just painfully slow.
Most tomorrow.
I'd like to get more done.
So just out of curiosity, is there any of these places that is really hard to rent because people don't really want to live there?
I would say the more difficult piece is getting folks to afford the rental. It's still not, I mean, certainly mine are just still not affordable when you're on fixed income.
60%, yeah, but 60%.
Yeah, that's
60 and 50 are hard, 30 and
Yeah.
40, they go fast. But when you're talking Social Security and limited retirement funds, it's hard for people to pay that. But I wouldn't say any of them it's an issue of location or reputation, anything in the maybe suites. It's all.
Well, you can always walk down Nelson and get it. Okay. Property updates, I think do you have any more to add to that, or?
No, I feel like we kind of talked more general about them and all the other things. We have had a couple deaths at a few properties. We had an accident outside Village on Main a couple weeks ago. That resident is back home. We scrambled to make sure that to see if they had medical coverage, and they do. She doesn't. So, just, it's a rough time of year. trying to make sure that our holiday parties are getting scheduled. John has been working to get his holidays for both properties, purchasing food, coming up with a plan for like pop-up. The Village on Main residents are wanting to schedule their holiday parties. That's what I was saying. Just keeping up the communication and trying to get those things scheduled.
So Village on Main, the kitchen is usable, they can use that kitchen. It's nice.
Yeah. It's really beautiful. I haven't done a full tour yet. So I'm always there to deal with an issue, so I never get to just mosey on around and look.
All right.
One thing on the operational report that we're trying to, it's not directly connected to LHA, but it's connected. So we're evaluating, for lack of a better word, looking at how we handle our part system for our fleet maintenance department. What's interesting is we're finding that some groups that do this actually procure at a wider range. And so it may be something that once we get a little further on the fleet side, it may actually slide over and that there becomes a warehousing function on the LHA side that's more virtual in terms of real-time inventory that doesn't require us to go as often to Home Depot and Lowe's and some of these other locations. And if there's an economy of scale, they get it at a lower cost. So that's something that I'm working on the fleet side, but we'll evaluate that. Things like disposables, we definitely know are significantly cheaper. So like gloves, and just the stuff that they use may make more sense for us to go there just because it's one of the disposables like 30% cheaper. Looking at Erica.
I was gonna say, I don't know anything about that.
So there's an economy of scale coming in. So there'll be more on that once we get our hands wrapped around it.
And I think that would be great because we do a lot of ad hoc purchases and there wasn't a good culture of doing the biannual property inspections and planning out maintenance needs. So our staff are just now getting back into that habit of, okay, we know all the ceiling fans at Aspen Meadows neighborhood need to be replaced because they're all starting to fail. So instead of piecemeal ordering ceiling fan by ceiling fan as they do, order them all. And then as you either turn a unit or have capacity, go in and replace the ceiling fan. But you get them for a better price. And then if there's larger things like we were seeing at Aspen Meadows neighborhood, washers and dryers, all the originals, they're all dying. It's cheaper to replace them than fix them. And some of them you can't fix because the parts aren't available anymore. So doing that assessment at the time that you do your inspections and then planning and budgeting for it, whether you're doing it through replacement reserves this year, the budget that you have, or saying, okay, next year we need to budget additional funds because we know this is going to happen. That traditionally has not been happening. And so we end up creating more work for our staff, more work for Kindred, her staff. It makes her want to pull her hair out. And we spend more money. So we need to be operating more like a business and less like a small time half-day door.
And what this will do is actually then, if they need it, is you pick up the phone and you call the group fleet and say, oh, I need this. They'll then go out and source it for you. And they have a different economy scale. Instead of thinking, oh, well, we're buying 100 ceiling fans, they may be in something that buy 1,000. And so, but you're not chasing it down, so then there's a cost avoidance of having staff spend their time chasing down the procurement of these issues versus just calling essentially a warehouse person and saying, can you find me, I need a 4-burner stove, electric, whatever it is, or, if for smart bears, we start trying to find 4-burner stoves that are convection versus the traditional electric stoves, because that reduces your likelihood of fire. And so, give me some options. They'll spit it back. Some of the software they're using, we know actually works with their fleet software, and I asked them, well, does it work with this? And they're like, well, let me see. So basically, it's a large-scale inventory model. So,
It's just a city,
yeah.
it's just a procurement.
No, that's parts warehouse, but they only have a warehouse too,
Which we don't have.
which they don't have, but we gotta figure out how to use everything in there. Is it just, you know, I hear we need storage, we need these things. We really don't, because, you know, warehousing's changed. In the time I've been in this business, warehouses have been getting smaller and smaller because you don't want to invest money in things that you don't absolutely need, because what you end up finding is they end up staying there for 10 years because you didn't need it. So you're looking at that real-time inventory model that says, how do we create these partnerships that just say, I need this, it comes in. So it really is more of a private sector strategy. But now that Lauren's here making some of these open changes, it'll be easier for us to evaluate that.
And standardizing what we put in our units. That's a big thing that I'd like to see going forward. It's hard to do with the model that LHA has traditionally taken in partnership, because we are not the decision maker. We are not picking the appliances and materials and things like that. You know, architects like to design beautiful buildings.
Yeah.
We care about how it functions and how it lasts, because we have to manage it. So 8 different lights with 8 different light bulbs might look good, but from an operations standpoint, I'd rather have 8 different receptacles with the same lights in all of them. You know, something standard, easy, but everyone's obsessed with these like LED hockey puck lights that they put in that they say they're gonna last 20 years. They're not. And so like having that information and tying that into our new builds is gonna be really critical long term. I mean, I'm thinking 40, 50 years down the road, not just 5 years down the road, because we're gonna double our inventory in the next 4 years. So.
Okay. Ken, you are on.
Financials. So there's nothing too alarming on the financials. I mean, most of it is vacancies. The vacancy dollars are over budget in 4 of our properties. With that, we do have some carried over insurance claims and insurance expenses. We didn't have any claims this year. Most of that is carried forward from a prior year. We've already received the funds. We're just incurring the expenses right now. And then the other thing that we never really budgeted for in the past, we did in 2025, was our bad debt. Because we're more proactive with sending people to collections now. That's where I see kind of an anomaly on the general expenses, where we're over budget, and that's just basically because we didn't budget a dollar amount for our bad debt expenses. So now in 2025, what we've done is expected some revenue costs to be reported, and those same revenue costs and for damages will be also bad debt. It's more than likely most of those move towards collections. So that'll be a little different for next year. Does anybody have any questions regarding particular properties, or?
I just have one,
Yeah.
and I think it has already been answered, but I think I knew the answer anyway. Under the LHA Briarwood, where you've got that maintenance expense, is that the grant?
Those actually, the maintenance, those are
I think that's what it is.
unit 101 and 102 for half units.
Yeah, so it's 331.4%.
Yeah, so that is insurance repairs. So those were actually under an insurance repair. We got the million last year, but the work to complete those happened this year. It was about $40,000 to get those 2 units completely demolished. At the Briarwood, yeah.
Okay.
You won't see the ramp. The ramp is on LHA's budget. So LHA got the grant and LHA is doing it as a contribution expense. So these won't be capitalized assets of the properties. It's just we're contributing, because a lot of the times if you have to get investor approval. Like if you bring a bunch of grant money in, you have to get investor approval because it becomes part of their equity. And if they don't approve it, then you have a problem. So our auditors said you can do it at the LHA and then do more like a contribution expense so that it actually doesn't go down properly. So you won't see that on Briarwood by itself, those expenses. Those expenses are actually coming through on LHA's books.
Kendra, you went through each sheet or you just asking for general?
Yeah, I was just asking for general. I wasn't even go through, I never go through each worksheet.
On page 12.
I can't.
Income statement for third quarter.
Yeah.
It just kind of caught my eye, that's a pretty sizable difference between the budget and.
Well, because, so here's the thing, we budget based on our developer fees and when we're gonna get developer fees. So it's based on this idea that we're gonna get those developer fees in, and that's not happening in the actual documents that are generated when the property closes, because developer fees come at particular capital contribution sections, and so until we can move those capital contributions, that's when we receive developer fees. So right now, there's a timing issue. It's a timing issue. So the way it's budgeted is it's budgeted kind of annually. Like, hey, we're gonna get this. We should be getting it on a monthly basis, but that's not necessarily the case. And it's all dependent on when the investors release the capital contributions, and we can pay the developer fees. So there may be situations here by the end of the year with Village on Main, and even Ascent, that we show capital contributions coming in and developer fees being paid that may actually carry forward to the next, unless we can recognize them, which would be a journal entry at the end of the year, basically recognizing the revenue. Not necessarily received, but recognizing it because we earned it. They just haven't distributed it to us yet.
So I have one more question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Last page, it says page 1 of 1.
Oh, yeah, I just noticed that. We're missing some properties on that one.
My question would be complicated. There's a column that's called suspense.
Yes.
What is that?
So that is based on the subsidies. So what happens is, if there's an amount in there, what that usually means is we owe money back to the subsidy agency. So let's say, and it's a lot of it's timing. So from month to month it'll change. So if somebody moves out at the very end of October and the subsidy agency pays us for November, but we don't have a rent charge because they're already moved out, that charge gets moved into suspense. And you're waiting for that subsidy agency to come back in December and pull that money back. And that's usually what happens, is they pull it back. Or if they don't have enough to pull it back, because we have that situation as well. If you don't have other tenants there and you can't pull the money back, then it's on us to make sure we get it paid back to those subsidy agencies.
So your question on the development fees is why Kendra created the fund balance worksheet. And that's why I spend as much time looking at that as I do kind of the budget pieces, because there's you can't control the timing of the development fees because the project timeline controls that and completion dates. And so I watched that fund balance sheet to understand, okay, we're projected to be at $3.3 million fund balance, but we're at 3.1, but it's going to come in January of 25, which then at the end of the day you're whole. So you're watching your fund balance sheet because that's where it'll go awry if the development fees come in much farther out in time than you're projected. And so That's the sheet that really, I think, in my mind reconciles the development fees coming in is,
Yeah.
She is that.
Well, it's a sheet that's like.
it's an operational sheet.
Yeah,
And you
it's
see it in budget.
operational.
Yeah, no, you see it in budget, but it's something that we do in budget.
And we take the original closing documents that basically outline when we're supposed to receive those development fees, and then I have another one that says, when did we receive them, so we can, one, make sure we're getting them, because I think there were situations when we came on board that we were supposed to be getting stuff from like Crispin 1 and Crispin 2, and we weren't seeing anything, but we didn't know it because there was no spreadsheet to tell us that they were due, or they needed to come in.
Well, most of my questions are just because I don't understand what's got in front of me.
No,
No.
it's all good. I don't mind questions at all.
I thought you were gonna say, I don't understand it either.
Well, I'll be honest, if I don't have an answer for you, I'll get back to you.
Yeah, what you really miss is when she's talking accounting language and I'm talking budgeting language, because they're different. And then we're trying to blend the two to get at something, and then we really end up confusing ourselves so much. We're like, what? And then we can reconcile back to, okay, you're speaking accounting, I'm speaking budgeting, and then we get to a point where it could be a wreck. Because you should never operate out of an accounting document. You should operate out of a budgeting document. And I mean, we had that problem here at the city, where the accounting was kind of, you had the budgeting documents, but the numbers were ruling the operations. And it should be flipped. Operations should dictate it. So we're now, she's got a lot of things that we can see. And then we confuse each other.
Money's always confusing, I think. So Kendra, on this sheet, it just seems to me in the past that we used to have all of the properties listed.
Yes, that was my bad. That was a boo-boo on my part, I can assume.
Well, I thought they were all up to date and
No, I wish. This was, I moved LHDC's report
Just the check.
over, and LHDC only has Small River, Spring Creek, Hearthstone, and Wash. So that, I can send it out to everybody on that one. I saw that when I only saw 4 of it, so.
oh gosh, somebody's gonna question that.
I would.
Okay.
Really low balance there.
I know, I thought, my gosh, we've gotten caught up on every other single place, you know? I thought that was exciting. Sarah.
All right. Let's go calls for service first. Actually, I'm pretty impressed. We only had 10 at the suites for the last month, and there were a couple of disturbances and more trespasses. That's not including like our follow-ups and sort of stuff. So, Zinnia had 10, and then they had. So when someone registers as a sex offender, it comes in as a calls. We had 5 registered. So right now I know we have 5 there. I'm sure we have a few more. AMN only had 2 calls. AMSA had 0, Watch had 0, Hearthstone had 0. Village on Main had 2. One was a death. That was actually yesterday.
What's the other one, the fall?
Yeah.
Both medical.
Briarwood had 2. Fall River had 4 calls. 2 of them were deaths, unfortunately.
What was that?
Fall River had 4 calls and 2 of them were
Oh, good, yes.
deaths. And then Spring Creek had 0. So pretty good. We had the bathrooms at AMSA and Watch cleaned last week, so they're full, they're open because they were contaminated.
Did you use that?
We did
How'd it work?
good. Good.
Which
We're trying to use at the suites. So we're getting
We'll have one at Fall River and use it.
Yeah.
It's just gonna be a clean. And how long does it take?
to clean.
Yeah.
So it depends on what's in these bathrooms. It was just the vent system, so they just went in and sprayed the foam, let it sit there.
For how long do they let it sit there?
About 15 minutes, and then they clean it out with a shop vac. So these bathrooms, the walls were finished, just cements. And then it was good news on Fall River, it was needed clean, no demo. Yeah, that's good.
So this phone stuff is interesting to us. You talked at this group or was it the council?
Yeah.
So,
It's so fascinating.
If you wanna look, so the company is called IntelliGuard. IntelliGuard, which is out of Brookfield. And they sell the stuff to feds.
yeah, it's game changing. And so we're gonna be watching it, and then he works with companies that use it.
And
So,
that's the company that came and did bathrooms.
yeah.
It's basically, it's a very high level of peroxide, is what the company told them. Not IntelliGuard, he doesn't want to release his secrets, but the company that's using that product said it's a very high level of peroxide. So,
And a few other special things probably.
yeah,
But
right?
it's all about the ratios.
So once you said it went well, so you basically used the product and then did like an additional test just to see how well it works?
We have to go back, do the test, and then once we know that it's another 0.5, we can open the unit, open the bathroom, whatever, that's great. So,
We're wanting to find one where there's carpet. Because that's the one where apparently when we were talking about, you spray the heck out of the carpet. You let it sit, do its thing, then you come in with like a shampooing machine or whatever, and then you really work it in, let it do its thing, and then you start pulling it all out. And we just fortunately haven't had one, but that's where we see it. But then he explained the drywall piece to us, which to me, that's the game changer. And it basically soaks through the drywall and soaks into the wood, so that's what's cleaning it up. And
Is it like through paint too, so it's able to?
the paint will literally slush off. I think he showed a picture. It just starts. So you have to retexture and paint, but retexture and paint is not.
Yes.
So as soon as we start finding that this works, we're actually probably going to talk about it in Sarah's other side, Landlord Tenant Alliance, because
we actually have the companies coming tomorrow night to our to give a training on their product, and so if anyone wants to know.
No long-term effects on the drywall itself, deteriorating like
yeah,
Not that they've seen, and they've been using it for several years,
Where's
at
this
least
training?
10 years.
Where's the training?
It's at the senior center tomorrow night. It'll be at 6:30. And I think the only other thing that we had, next site was going into Fall River and Spring Creek. I just got an update from John. It sounds like they're still working on it. Yeah, this is the boosting for their cell phones. At this point, they just have the first floor at Spring Creek done. And so I'm gonna contact Anthony or Next Light Connection and find out what the hold of is. It could be product, because I know they're getting on cable for some time, but, so that's, at least it's moving.
Anything else about that?
That's all I know.
cows.
Sorry?
Cows.
So, we are just very
Very close
quickly,
to the finish line.
very quickly pulling the trigger we have to basically purchase everything by the end of the summer. So the board will next week approve on some of the ARPA funding that's needing to be used to move forward. And so we have all of our numbers in, and the contracts are basically ready to go next week to the board. And then at that point, Kendra and I will diligently spend the money, pay a couple companies to do their thing, and then we'll get, it's going to be an LHA staff decision on what properties we want done first, for camera systems. And we did include the suites. Actually included all the properties, even Briarwood. And that's using different funding sources with the ARPA.
And I confirmed with the installer and contractor at Zinnia that their system should be able to also be pulled into the VMS if that is a decision that wants to make. So that we can.
So when you say it has to be taken care of before the end of December, do you mean it actually has to be on site, physically on site, or is it just a cover?
We just need to
Cover.
purchase it. So
Okay.
I know that the inventory, I mean, that's part of what everyone's job is making sure that inventory is there. So they've been working on that. So we're putting about 151 cameras across our portfolio.
What do we think is an end date?
An end date? That's going to depend on Ball, our installer, but I think we saw how quickly the VOM went up. It depends on, some of the properties are going to need cabling, like the suites. Some of them will not, so it really is property dependent. And we might, again, internally we need to discuss which property we want done first versus last. So.
Okay. Harold?
You've covered it all.
So I guess.
Good, any questions for me?
Okay, other businesses, any of you guys have any questions, thoughts? No complaints? If not, hey, we're adjourned. I need a motion to adjourn. Melissa and Glenn. Okay. Been too long here. All right, we will see you guys in December.